talking about crossover athletes in this podcast because on your screen now is a picture of Matt Skelton. Basically, he's held regular kickboxing titles at heavyweight, world titles at heavyweight, versions of what I can only really say would be the IBF and the WBO versions of generic kickboxing with no knees and no elbows, but he's also won a world Muay Thai title in terms of, he won one of the big one of the big four Muay Thai titles, and he's won one of the biggest versions of a Muay Thai title which you can win, or a kickboxing title which you can win, which is K1, which is a K1 title, and that's like almost being given a Ring Magazine title and being the Ring Magazine champion of England, which essentially is what he was. He had over 70 fights as a kickboxer and over 37 fights as a boxer, and really, never really got stopped that often. Only, I think it was 3 times as a kickboxer did he get knocked out, and 5 times as a boxer. But the thing is we look at Curtis Woodhouse, we look at the story of him coming from a boxer coming from a footballer to being a boxer, and him winning the British title. That's a great story. That's a great narrative, and I think he came along at the right time, Curtis Woodhouse, where Matchroom and people like Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, who could see the potential if Curtis Woodhouse was able to put not just bums on seats, but put the work in. They would surround him with the right people to get him to that destination. But Matt Skelton, I think, was around at the time when I think Matchroom was developing what it is now. It was coming out of the Eubank era, and it was everything was sort of breaking away. Frank Warren was losing his grip on Sky a lot, Kelly Maloney, or Frank Maloney as we knew him at the time, was doing bits and bobs, and Matchroom was just beginning to change the perception of boxing. But one thing they've been very good at, whether it be Frank Warren, or whether it be Cyclone Promotions, or whether it be Box Nation, one thing Eddie Hearn has always said, and Frank Warren has always said, this is about storytelling. And someone like Curtis Woodhouse, you can you have the added thing of his dad's loss on there, and that adds a great deal. Just like with the Darren Barker thing, his brother, how can you not feel for those guys? But the fact is, to go from one sport to another, and I know you can say, well, they're completely different. Football, I would argue, yeah, but you've still got to be a fit athlete, and boxers, you can't make a boxer, they are born. It's like Anthony Mundine, the Australian football player who rugby to us. I mean, he's taking hard shots on the rugby league, or no, on the whatever they call it, Australian rugby league, or whatever field, or football field, Australian Aussie rules football, sorry, that's what they call it. He's taking hard shots daily, so he was geared up for it. And it's like when you see a lot of these professional footballers going, professional NFL players going into boxing, they're used to taking those head blows to an extent, maybe not so raw, but what Mundine did, and the Australian media got behind it, was breathe life back into the Australian music scene. 2-weight world champion, 2-time WBA champion before a Super WBA title came along. The fact of the matter is at the end of the day, Anthony Mundine and Matt Skelton both won world titles. But I hate to say it, Mundine, where he's from, is like Ryan Giggs giving up football and going into boxing, and winning the WBA title twice. and taking Kessler to the brink and taking Sven Otke to the brink and nearly taking away his undefeated record. That's what it's the equivalent of. But yeah, there was a story to tell about Matt Skell, and it's a shame that didn't happen. But I have to say, he's one example. He achieved that with kickboxing and boxing. I mean, to go on and become the WBU champion. A lot of people go, oh, well, it's not a title. I actually disagree. If you look at Mickey Ward, who had it, and you look at Ricky Hatton, who had it for a while. I mean, all those guys that have gone on to win it have either gone on to bigger fights. I mean, it's mainly a title that's built for the journeyman. Or the basic boxer that can improve. It's a segue title. The IBO has sort of aligned itself with pretty much WBC in the Ring magazine and been this add-on title, and now it's trying to get a sort of a recognition all of its own. It's where the WBU's just gone out and done it and said, right, we've had some great world champs. We've had Lennox. We've had Audley Harrison at one point, who was WBU champion, I believe. I mean, the thing is, different titles are big in different parts of the world. WBF is big in Australia, but I'm going off the subject. Let's get back into it. Crossover athletes. I just don't feel we give these guys enough credit. And when you look at people like wrestlers going into UFC, I know UFC isn't everybody's cup of tea, or kickboxers coming into boxing. You look at Dillian White. He is getting the treatment that Matt Skell should have gotten. So Matt Skell's legacy has been that people like Dillian White have seen that and gone, I can do that. And actually, I need to train boxing anyway to do the kickboxing, and even Ricky Hatton started out kickboxing as a kid, and then switched to boxing. So, obviously there's something to be said for that. But to see Dillian White and to see sort of Eddie do smart business with Dillian and say, look, your moment in the sun isn't just going to be shaking up Anthony Joshua. We're gonna try. You're gonna get the best training that we can give you, or you can get, or that you want. And you can see they're building a world champion there. They're gearing this kid up to be a world champion, and you can see what's gonna happen. The story is gonna be Joshua White 3 or 2, if you want to count it in the professional worlds. But looking at people who come from, say wrestling to MMA, Brock Lesnar is a big guy. I'm just going to end on this note. Is that to put a big guy in a ring, and you stand a chance. And like going back to the point of Flintoff, and recently with Idris Elba, you put big guys in the ring, a punch can change it. Desire can sometimes not be there. If you're a bigger guy, you feel the punches harder, you feel the technique harder. Everything has to be crisper. But thing is Brock Lesnar was a big guy anyway. He wasn't just a bodybuilder. He was a proper college wrestler. And actually, was a great athlete as well. But it's easy just to put a big guy up against a small guy and say, there you go. But he did get choked out by Frank Mir in his first fight. If you put someone like the recent thing with CM Punk or Phil Brooks in a cage fight, often with disastrous results, he's in the same division as McGregor, and fighters in that division are hungry. It's not just a case about muscling them, you have to have better technique. So this is the thing. I think crossover athletes should be recognised more. I think Matt Skelton is one of the unsung heroes of that, and I think we're going to see a lot more crossover athletes, and I just hope we recognise them, like Curtis Woodhouse, Dillian White, Flintoff for giving it a go. I just hope we recognise these guys a lot more, and of course Anthony Mundine, he's probably the best one of them all, and that's the only thing I'll agree with Steve Bunce on.